Now, for 22 years, Tun Dr Mahathir was the main provider for the answer to this question, Quo Vadis Malaysia. Today, Tun Dr Mahathir remains one of the persons with the most insights to offer, but the question is really one that we all Malaysians must ask ourselves. Quo Vadis Malaysia? Which is why both of us are here today. Opponents for long periods of time when we were on opposite sides of the divide. But what brought us together? One MDB. Even though both of us got no interest and shares in one MDB. And of course the 2.6 billion, or is it 4.2 billion donation scandal, the likes of which even Tun Dr M, who is familiar with all these scandals, dare not even imagine. I mean, this is really mind-boggling. Our present Prime Minister, Dr. Sri Najib, is now investigated by the United States, Australia, Britain, Hong Kong, Luxembourg, Singapore, Switzerland, Thailand, for the one NDB scandal. The list goes on longer and longer. Some time ago, Dr. Sri Najib talked about globalization. Combination of two words, globalization and localization. We call it glocalization. And now we know what it means. Now we won't know whether another country will join the club of one NDB investigators, or when he might be requested to give evidence. Now already bankers involved with the one NDB scam are already sacked in UAE, uncharged in Singapore. And of course, the amount of donations from the original 2.6 billion has now snowballed into 4.2 billion and is still counting. Just the end of last month, one NDB defaulted on the USD $1.75 billion bond, triggering cross defaults on $1.9 billion in loans. Now, do we get away by not paying our loans? Of course not. Malaysians pay the price with a further weakening of ringgit and now likely high interest rates in the future. The government keeps on saying that they are only guaranteeing up to 5.8 billion ringgit. But you know that this is a government-owned company. In the event they cannot pay 50 billion, you know that the Prime Minister is not paying. You know that you are paying. And that's why we have every interest in this scandal. 50 billion ringgit, my friends, works out to how much? 1,700 ringgit for every Malaysian, big and small. For a family of 10, that will come up to 17,000 ringgit. That's not a small amount by any measure. The people are tired of Prime Ministers and his never-ending one NDB scandal that has resulted in the imposition of the GST because they ran out of funds, and also caused the sharp plunge in the ringgit. Today's Malaysia, more specifically Malaysia after 2008, is a new country where the people cannot be taken for a ride so easily as it was done in the past. The days that governments know best are gone forever. There is no more loyalty to political parties or governments, only to good policies and good leaders. The people are the boss, and no longer the boss for just the 2 weeks of election campaigns, where they cast their votes, but throughout the period. In yesterday's Sarawak general elections, Tan Sri Adnan won big because won big on the promise of implementing good policies. Despite the baggage of him being part and parcel of Barisan Nasional for the last 50 years, and everything that is wrong about Sarawak, where you see a state with some of the most wealthiest or richest natural resources, and yet having some of the poorest people in Malaysia. where you have people living so poor they live without water and electricity, where roads are a disgrace. You know, I still feel the strain on my back after traveling the Miri Marudi road. You shouldn't call it a road. I don't know what you should call it. But even though I was traveling on a four-wheel drive, I tell you, I felt that I was riding on a boat in a storm. Really jostling and bumping all along the way. Pregnant women better not take that road. Because if you take that road, pregnant woman, that will be a threat to life of both mother and child. It was that bad. But despite that, Salawakians are very generous people. They are very forgiving and they are willing to give Tan Sri Adnan a chance. And they are willing to gamble on the hope or promise of good policies. Now that is where Salawakians await that promise. And we hope that he will not disappoint after his famous election victory and revert to type as a typical BN leader. Principally, don't become like Najib. Perhaps he has shown the way how to reverse the slide in popularity and the loss of support of the riot towards Barisan Nasional since the last two elections, where in 2008 they lost 5 states, they lost their 2/3 majority. In 2013 they lost the popular vote for the first time. Does Najib dare to follow Tan Sri Adnan and implement sound and good policies beneficial to the people? I doubt that he would dare to do so because of his personal baggage of all the financial scandals bedeviling him. But that doesn't help us. We are still back to square one. And our country, and we know, is going down the drain. There are many questions we know too little of their answers. How can we get out of this mess? I'm sure Tun Dr Mahathir has some answers. Deklarasi Rakyat or Citizens Declaration is his answer. And I think I will leave it to him to explain what is Deklarasi Rakyat all about. And now some people may find it awkward that Tun Dr Mahathir and myself, we are sharing the same stage, promoting Deklarasi Rakyat. And let's be very frank here. There are two ways of looking at it. One, attack us for political expediency. Tun Dr M, Tan Sri Muhyiddin, Dr Sri Mukris, Lim Kit Siang, Dr Sri Asmin, Mat Sabu, Dato Ambiga, Maria Chim Abdullah, that we all team up together because we are opportunists and we have no principles whatsoever. Tomorrow we may switch to another tone and another team, depending on what suits us. This is what our opponents will try to label us. But if you look at it positively, that there is a need to reconcile and put aside our differences for the greater good of the nation when the country is in the midst of a major moral, political and economic crisis. You know that Malaysia is well known all over. Well known for all the wrong reasons. Malaysia has never got so much printing space in the international publications. I'm sorry to say, Tun Dr M, Dr Sri Najib has outshone you. Whether in the International New York Times, Wall Street Journal and all the major publications, he got more print space than you. Don't know how many times he got front page in the Wall Street Journal already. But for all the wrong reasons. And I always remember Dr. Sri Najib lamenting the fact, why are these international publications interested in a small country like Malaysia? They must have a plan to topple Malaysian leaders elected by the people. Actually, he should know the answer himself. Because international publications are all only interested in a news angle. And Malaysia stands out because we are now the world champions of corruption. And whether you like it or not, they like world champions. They will always print stories about world champions. And which government leader in the world can break Najib's record? $700 million in his personal bank account. Maybe more. No one has broke that record. Even Ferdinand Marcos also lose to him. So you can't blame the international media for their interest. And despite talk of him suing the international media, we are still waiting. And when he talked about not just that moral aspect, but also the political and economic aspect, a deputy prime minister was sacked because he dared to ask questions about 1MDB. The attorney general was sacked because he dared to investigate. And officers were transferred all over the place. All because of one person. You know, I just came out from MACC after 20 hours of questioning. 20 hours of questioning. I'm willing to go for another 20 hours of questioning to prove that the landlady who sold the house to me did not get any benefit from the state government. No problem. I'm willing to face my accusers. Even a minister in an open debate in television, no problem. Because we've got nothing to hide. I just wonder, if I can go for 20 hours of questioning, how many hours did the Prime Minister go for questioning? And his amount is 2.6 billion. So that should be how many 30,000 or 40,000 hours? How we wonder, was there one in the first place? Now, while we may not agree on many things, we cannot agree that the urgency to stop the burgeoning of the 1MDB 50 billion ringgit scandal, or the donations 2.6 or 4.3 billion, whatever they may be. I think this is where, despite whatever differences we may have, I think we say that this is where the red line is drawn. Enough is enough. On that issue, we need to save the country. Yes, there are many problems or many disagreements, but I think we must draw the line somewhere. And if anyone can take a stand that this is too much and get punished for it, I think we should not be blamed for trying to work together to stop the country from bleeding. And of course, what next? That's where Tun Dr M comes in. After all, no Prime Minister in history, including Tun Dr M, has permitted Malaysia to descend to such unimaginable depths. The 1MDB 50 billion ringgit scandal that caused the sharpest depreciation ever of the ringgit. Even under Tun Dr M, the ringgit never went down to 430, 440 to the US dollar. Never. Even when Dr M was the Prime Minister, he never implemented the GST. Cilaka punya GST lah. And when he was the Prime Minister, no Prime Ministers in history has ever witnessed a default of a debt by a government-linked entity. No, that is a disgrace. We have never defaulted on a loan before. For the first time in history, a Malaysian government-linked entity defaulted on the loan when they couldn't pay the $50 million interest. And of course, no other Prime Minister has 2.6 billion ringgit or even more in his personal bank account. Which is why we are asking here, Quo Vadis Malaysia. But perhaps we can also ask you, what direction of the country you want to see Malaysia heading to? Kerana kalau bukan kita, siapa lagi? Dan kalau bukan sekarang, bila lagi? We don't have very much time. And that's why it's with great pleasure I welcome Tun Dr Mahathir to enlighten and provoke us with response. Thank you very much.